I think I remember a couple of years ago you starting to get into like the working dog stuff and posting a lot about tracking and narcotics detection and, you know, obviously the bite work and stuff like that. How did you transition into those types of things? Because that always, especially you were talking about, you have a couple of dogs that have been placed with like local departments and stuff. That I was never super involved in, but I know from people that were involved in it can be a very difficult field to get into if you actually look at like really working with police departments and stuff like that. Like a lot of times they tend to work solely with people that are police canine trainers and stuff like that.
Yeah, bridging that gap, crossing that bridge was tough in the beginning. But what I did is I went to a couple decoy camps. I went to one of the largest companies on the East Coast, Southern Coast Canine, and went through some of their stuff. And they were very reluctant at first to let a civilian come in and do anything, because typically everyone there is either law enforcement or paramilitary. Like those are prerequisites in order to go through anything that they have. But I talked them into letting me come down for a decoy seminar. And I did, and it was one of those things that through the course of me getting to know some people down there, knowing the owners, and I was telling them I wanted to get into detection, and they said, well, you know, we have this big seminar coming up in November or whatever, you know, you're welcome to come down to. Do you have a dog that you've even built yet? And I said, yeah, I'm in the process of building one now. They said, okay, come down. And the dog, and I still have him today, he was a board and train that they just decided they didn't want anymore. And so I just took the dog, and he's one hell of a detection dog. But I went down there with the knowledge of building the dog, but not the knowledge of actually handling the dog in that kind of situation. So, but they saw that potential, and man, this guy, did you build this dog? And I said, yeah, you know, 100%. Like, this was a board and train. He just showed up one day, and now he's doing this. And they're like, that's, you know, pretty amazing. You know, why don't you need to go to handler school? You know, they said, you definitely need to go to handler school so you can understand what the dog is doing in odor, out of odor, what source is, where what scent cones look like, and, you know, how air and wind disrupt this kind of stuff. And so I put myself through a 4-week handler school down there and just gained so much knowledge on handling a detection dog that now, and I continue to do that. It's not like that was, okay, I checked the box on that. I mean, I continue to put myself through seminars and clinics and things like that. And I've actually been invited to host seminars and clinics. And we put on workshops for police canine teams and things of that nature. And so it's kind of like, it was very difficult to get in. It was very difficult to show up and say, hey, I'm a dog trainer and I'm going to work your police dog. And they're like, no way. Like until they actually start to see that you're serious about what you're doing and you actually understand every aspect of everything from like a tactical situation on where people need to be, where the dog needs to be, what needs to be taking place, how to read a dog. But once you get in there and you start to say, hey man, I'm just here to help. Like, I'm not asking for anything from you. I'm just asking, I'm just trying to help you because you're the ones out there on the front lines. And then, you know, I've positioned myself with some really great companies that I have been able to learn from. And now because of that, they see what I'm doing. And so they like I said, will actually reach out for me to come and teach things. We've got a big event over in Savannah next weekend that I got invited to come and instruct at, you know, so it's just one of those things. But I would say, man, building a detection dog, building a tracking dog, building an apprehension canine, doing bite development with dogs and young puppies. I have engulfed myself in that. And dude, if you can build a narcotics detection dog and you know what behavior looks like, or a tracking dog, especially a tracking dog, and you know what change behavior looks like, you know what happens when the dog is in odor, out of odor, sit down, place, heel, here, it just becomes very, very simple. Like it's almost like as you get better with jujitsu, things start to slow down a lot. You know, like you get in there as a white belt and you're freaking out because you're at the bottom of, you know, somebody and you got them in guard, but they're just pummeling you. And then once you have gained experience in that and grappled with some brown belts and some blue belts and purple belts and things of that nature, then things start to slow down. So I would say dealing with the working dogs has really made me a lot better as a pet trainer because everything is so much faster in the working dog world. I think you and I had the conversation one time about the Malinois, and you're like, yeah, man, I've got a Malinois. And the drawback to that is everything is 1,000 miles an hour. It's like, hey, let's go outside. The dog is taking off outside. It's like, damn, man, calm down. So the dog, one of my personal dogs that I have, that I got offered an immense amount of money for this, but I turned him down just because I know nobody else wants this dog. Yeah. Like, he is just, you let him out of the crate, he comes out, he's got his chest up, he barks a few times, he may bite you just randomly, just out of drive. Nobody wants this stuff, but he's an absolutely amazing dog. His obedience is good. He's got great detection. He's actually my patrol demo dog. But it's just a different world. And if you can deal with that, and you can work with that kind of mentality dog, then training pet, my pet training ability has just skyrocketed since playing around with working dogs. Just because it gives you a different perception on a different avenue of training, for sure.
100%.
But as far as breaking into that, it was very difficult as a civilian. To not, but what's great is once I get there, and they don't really, this thing about law enforcement officers, man, they don't really care about your certifications. No. They don't care about your schooling. They care, can you help me? Right? Can you help me? And my big thing is, I like to teach from the suit. I'm totally comfortable with the dog being on my arm, working on his grip while I'm instructing the handler what to do. And there's not a lot of people that can do that. I don't know if you ever heard of the name Carlos Ramirez. He's very good at teaching from the suit. And life slows down, and he says, and he's this big giraffe looking guy, and he's like 6'5" or whatever, but and his personality is very strong, but at the same time, when he's dealing with law enforcement officers, he's able to be very deliberate in his words and say, look, this is what you're doing, this is what the dog is doing, this is what you need to be doing in order for the dog to be doing something else. And I have really gravitated towards being able to teach from that position. And I think that I think they appreciate, I think law enforcement appreciates me doing that, because I can take a break from that whole militant, like, I'm better than everybody else attitude, and say, hey man, I'm just here to help, and so that has landed me in some positions where I have met some really cool people. I'm part of some really neat organizations that are doing some big things in patrol work, in law enforcement tracking. And again, because of my addictive personality, I'm constantly putting myself in the position to learn. So I'm always putting myself through schools. I just got back from a week-long tracking seminar with Georgia Canine, who's, in my opinion, probably the go-to tracking school in the nation right now. They're just phenomenal. And I have just been able to expand my knowledge base on stuff like that. And if you don't go in there with an attitude, and you see it all the time, man, dog trainers, we're like freaking hairstylists, man. Everybody wants to like downplay what somebody else is doing. And keep in mind, like, we see some really stupid shit, right? Like I look on the internet and I'm like, this guy clearly has no idea what he's doing. But I try to be not like that, right? I try to say, hey, look, this is where my knowledge base is. I'll do everything I can to work with you and help you. But if it gets to be out of my scope, then, we'll go find somebody else. Right. And I'm very humble when it comes to that. But I try to never, I don't want to ever be the least educated guy in the room, so I make sure that I'm at a place where I can teach you about tracking. I can teach you about bite work. I can teach you about narcotics before I put myself in a position where, I'm going to be saying something stupid.